Okay, we can start with project monitoring and control. Okay, as you can see on the screen now, that diagram. Okay, when you're doing your planning and execution, when you're executing your project, there will be a number of things that you might need to change. Okay, and before you even think of changing, you need to monitor the process itself, the execution process itself. You need to monitor all those parameters and see that everything is going according to the plan. But then sometimes, if things are not going to plan, you need to put up some control mechanisms. It's the same as when you're running your plant. You need to have you have your P&IDs and all that. You have your SCADA system. You are monitoring your plant, and then you have all the integrated loops and all that. So you can always make changes as required. And then when you make changes, you revise the plan, then you monitor again, you execute. So it becomes a cycle. Okay. So project monitoring and control, it basically entails, it involves all the activities that you do in order to make sure that everything is done according to the plan and for you to achieve the desirable results. So what happens now is that it's basically for you to see what is happening on the ground, because sometimes you will not be able to be everywhere. So when different teams are executing different activities, they should give a report, or you need to give them some sort of a spreadsheet or where they can put in what they have done so far. And in that way, you will be able to see everything about the project. So like that, you have an overview. So when you're doing monitoring and control, you need to reconfirm the plan. You need to check that all the activities that you have agreed on are being performed, and the start dates and end dates for the activities. Remember, when you are doing the network diagram, you need to make sure that everything is going according to that. And you also need to assess the performance for all completed deliverables and all dates for milestones. Remember, when you're doing the work breakdown structure, that you are having different activities and and deliverables, especially on the work breakdown structure. So you need to make sure that all those deliverables are achieved. So you need to trace down that. Even compare with your Gantt chart, you make sure things are completed on time, because you need to remember the constraints of the project again. On time, on quality, all those constraints, they should come in again. Okay, so control of the project, when you're doing your control, you revise also the planning phase, the plan that you are having. Sometimes you might need to change some of the plans. And then when you do that, you go back again, you execute. And then when you start executing again, you might notice that you need to change something again. Then you put in that control again. Then it becomes cyclic again. Okay, when you are doing your monitoring and control, you need to collect the information from different people that are working on the project. And then you compare it with the plan. You make sure everything is going accordingly. You need to take corrective action where it's required. You need to keep people informed. So your communication is very important. And then you need to monitor the project performance. Everything is going accordingly. And you need to monitor those risks that you have identified also. And if there are new risks that are coming up, you need to identify them as soon as possible also. And then you also need to monitor the proximity to new milestones. Okay, there is now what you call the project management information system, PMI. Yes. So this is just a set of tools that you use for collecting, analyzing, and reporting information about the project. So when you're carrying out a project, you need to have let's say you have set up, let's say, a spreadsheet where you are recording all the information about the project in such a way that even if someone wants to have an overview of the entire project, you can actually just run them through that spreadsheet. They can get all the information about the project, because at the end of the day, you cannot be everywhere also. Plus, sometimes you will also be required, let's say from top management, to give them an update on what is going on. So it will even be easier for you also. And in that PMI, yes, usually put your inputs is actually raw data from the field. And then the processes, this is in terms of now the analysis and comparisons that you are doing. Okay, analysis is in terms of the calculations. Maybe you might be doing some calculations. You want to calculate, let's say, progress of the project. You want to do some comparison, let's say, between actual and the, the plan. But in terms of your work breakdown structure, in terms of your network diagram, all those dates you compare. And then the output, this is now your report that you will have to present. Normally what you do is you have a dashboard. Sometimes you, depending on the magnitude or the level of the project that you're working on, you might have, let's say, a TV screen, which is showing the project progress. And it keeps on getting updated after here and then for some time, depending on the project that you're working on. So in that way, anyone can actually see what is happening. So everyone has the information. It just makes things a bit easier. Okay, and you also monitor the schedule performance. So after time and again, you'll be regularly monitoring the project schedule performance to make sure that everything is going according to the schedule that you have. This in terms of your Gantt chart, your network diagram, and your work breakdown structure, all that. You make sure everything is going accordingly. And when you are doing this, when you are monitoring regularly like this, it gives you an indication if should there be any issues, if there are any coordination problems or maybe some conflicts, maybe they don't have enough resources that might, then let's say different teams might start having conflict because they want to make use of the same equipment, there's not enough equipment and all that, then it gives you ample time also to make any new arrangements or to resolve those conflicts. And most importantly, the issue of cost overruns. You also need to monitor costs for the project when you're doing that. How do you think you will manage to do that? Can anyone tell maybe how you manage the costs? How will you control and monitor them? What do you think?
At what point,
When you
in the
are
early indicator?
when you're executing the project, when you're doing monitoring and control of the project while you are executing, you need to monitor the costs also. Maybe you end up exceeding the budget and all that. How do you do that?
Having a detailed spreadsheet, is that enough with the things bought, and then just keep adjusting it as you move on so that you know how much you have left, stuff like that?
Yeah, it's fine also. There's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine. It depends on the level of the project also, but the spreadsheet should be fine. Should give you a good indication because you want to know how much have you spent so far and what did you budget to spend so far. Okay, we'll come to cost monitoring and control later also. Okay, and then you also need to assess the project schedule status. Okay, this is in terms now. This diagram here is now showing you in terms of your, it's basically remember the network diagram that you did, those early start, late start. So you compare all that now. Let's say these are the different activities that you see on your left. Then here you can see the person responsible and then start date, end date. Let's say for start date, you have planned start date, then you have actual start date. Like this activity was planned to start on the 14th, but then it actually started on the 15th instead. Okay. Nonetheless, the end date was planned to be done on the 25th, but then it was actually completed on the 25th. So it means even if they did not start on exactly that date, they still completed that activity of designing a questionnaire. It was completed on time. So you need to monitor all the activities like that. Then you also check if it's in critical path. This is why the critical path that you're doing is important. It comes in again. It depends on the project you're working on. Okay, and in terms of controlling scope creep, okay, don't forget creep, like adding things that were not initially planned for. Okay, or in terms of this time now, it's scope. It's like the what your project was supposed to deliver. Now you're adding more deliverables to it. So for you to control it, you need to have a detailed description of all the objectives of your plan. This includes also the deliverables. So once you have that, you also need to assess now. If let's say there is a need to change something, you need to assess uh, the changes now in terms of your product or schedule and resources. You need to assess if it's really necessary to do it. And you need to also have a good relationship with the client that you are working on. So that whenever you want to request for some changes, yeah, that your client will actually be willing to listen to you. This is now when now the people skills come in again. You need to be well connected to the people. And you need to choose an appropriate medium for your communication. The question is, how will you communicate to everyone else, even to the client? Will you send them an SMS for update? Will you send them a WhatsApp? You will send them an email? How will you do it? So, or maybe you go talk to them directly. You have a meeting, or you can have a meeting, let's say in the morning, every day, short meeting, or you don't have a meeting, you only have it, let's say once after 3 days, you decide. You need to choose the appropriate one. What do you think is the appropriate communication channel maybe for your project? How would you communicate with your project stakeholders? Anyone?
Can't you have like general meetings or something?
It's fine also. You can have
Like
like what?
like periodically have like general meeting, what do they call it? Where all your shareholders and your stakeholders come and then you tell them the progress.
Yes, yes. No, that's good. That's good also. Just so they can all be up to date.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember now, you as a project engineer or project manager, sometimes you'll be required, you will have that meeting, let's say with the guys who are actually doing the job. Let's say you do that over, let's say after some time as agreed, but sometimes you might also be required to have another meeting, let's say updating top management, for example. Let's say with top management, you can update them once after every week or like that. While the guys who are actually doing the job, you can update them after every 2 days, something like that. But it depends on the level of
Mm-hmm.
your project. Okay, communicate. That's why communication is very important now. So there's a lot about communication in your slides also. So you need to find to conduct an efficient meeting. You should not make the meeting too long, so people might not even choose to go there next time. Keep it short, simple, straightforward. Okay, and you need to follow up also on details, maybe on things that you requested for previously. You need to prepare a progress report. This will go to the big bosses. And you need to have a project dashboard. Yeah, a project dashboard. This is just it's like it's having key performance indicators for the project progress. And I'll show you one now. And sometimes you will also be required to give upper management progress reviews. You need to just keep them updated as time goes on. And for that, for you to achieve all that, you need to have a project communications management plan. You need to manage all those communications. You need to have an official communication channel. And in terms of the project dashboard, it will look something like that. It depends on the project though. So like here you can see, if anyone enters, let's say the room, they can actually see there's something like a notice board, electronic notice board, something like that. So it's showing you that analysis has been completely completed already. It's 100% done. The design is 72% done. Development, like that. Testing, 25% implementation. So the project is, so it's an indication of the entire project. You can all see what is happening until the project is completed. Now, in terms of costs, so you need to plan and control all costs involved in a project. This is normally done, it starts off with resource planning. Okay, so resource planning, in this case, you determine all the resources that you need to execute that project. This is in terms of whether it's people or human resource, equipment, materials, all of them that are needed for the project. And then once you are, this information, you can also take it from the, let's say, I don't have the, from the work breakdown structure. Remember the work breakdown structure that we tried to do last time? Something like that. You can, from all these activities, how much will each cost? Let's say here, like procurement, you have cement, you need to buy cement, you need to buy bricks, you need to buy concrete, all this plumbing, roofing materials, all these activities, you need to assign now what resource do you need to execute each one of them, and what equipment do you need, materials, all that, you assign a dollar value to all of them. And then you also need to do the cost estimation. Like that, you have done a cost estimation, like, because if you have assigned the dollar value to all of them, then with that, it's like you have done you put up your budget now. You finalize your budget where you have allocated to all the other costs, because some of them may not be in that from the work breakdown structure. And then when you start executing the project, you start controlling those changes now. Like what one of your colleagues explained, you can do it even in Excel. So normally they call it the activity-based costing. So for each single activity, you need to identify now what is the amount of money that you need there, in terms of the budgeted one, and then the actual one also. For each single activity, you do it. So we're now heading to activity-based costing, ABC. So you need to trace costs for every single activity in your project. That's why the more detailed your project is, your work breakdown structure is, the more you will not miss out, or the more accurate your estimations will be. So it starts off with, you have something like this can be a study process, or it can be the project that you're doing. In that project, you need to identify the activities. Once you have identified all those activities, you need to identify now costs also for all those activities. Once you have identified all those costs, those costs are allocated to all the activities. And then with that, there are also some unallocated costs. Okay, not all the activities will have, you can allocate cost to them. There are some things that you might do, but you do not plan to do them, or maybe you do not think they will be necessary. And then there are traceable to cost objects in the activity, in the cost per activity, cost allocation. Then this will form up your cost objects. Okay, so now how you do this in Excel, like your colleague was saying, you can have you can categorize all those costs now. There is let's say direct material, you can put it like that. So these ones are traceable. Direct labor. Let's say in terms of labor also, when you're controlling labor costs, let's say you have had, let's say you have called in some consultants. You know, consultants are paid, let's say per hour, for example. How would you control that cost now?
How will we what?
How will you control it?
I don't understand the question.
If there's a consultant that came in for your project, remember that consultant who is paid, let's say per hour. How will you control that your cost will not exceed what you plan for that consultant?
You prepare beforehand, and you come with rather the things that you only need to maximize on, the things that you need most clarity on, and then you do that as within the time period you have to minimize costs, I think.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's
Of
right.
course.
Any
Maybe
further suggestions?
also make sure that the hours that he works,
Yes,
you have to calculate the hours beforehand
yes, that's
You
so
correct.
have a
that you know
clear
the amount of hours.
Sir, sir,
what,
let's say
what if I
I'm
use a
working on a
timer?
What is it?
let's assume a case where I'm say for instance I'm working on a project on a certain project and pertaining direct labor. How do I sort of get a rough estimate of uh
The labor.
the salary of the people that I'm gonna be paying and all?
Okay. Okay, depending on the project, let's say a project that you're working on is you are building a house at your you are building your house.
Mhm.
You can already talk to the person who is in charge of construction, how much it will cost labor for building the house, the entire house.
No, sir, but then with that project already has like, you're basically just hiring someone who knows how many people are going to work. Let's say I'm coming up with a new project now, like
Yeah.
I'm opening a foundry or something like that.
Okay.
How do I get those numbers into perspective?
Okay. You can. Okay. Let's say you like that. It means you have hired people, isn't it?
Mm-mm.
So you have their contracts, isn't it? You know how much they earn, isn't it?
No, sir, I don't even know how much they earn yet. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
No, that one you sort it out. You sort out their contracts with them. Agree. You agree with. Let's say if you are hiring some metallurgist, you talk to him. You agree on how much you will pay him. You need to
To
agree.
look after the chickens.
You what?
No, sir.
Oh, but sir,
Yes.
so it means in that although you probably know, say for instance, before I even get to talk to the metallurgist, there's probably a certain maximum amount that you can pay that metallurgist for a certain work that he has to do. So now for the project, say for instance, now this the accounting part now, putting in consideration that, so do I then have to consider the maximum amount that I can pay that person to do the job, although I might have to beg him for less? Or what would be the approach for the costing partner?
There you can negotiate with him. Sometimes there is a industry benchmark. Like let's say in industry, a typical metallurgist earns from this much to that much. So as long as it's somehow, let's say, within that, but it also depends on the loss of supply and demand. If let's say you put your amount very high, then I can say, no, it's fine. I know another metallurgist here. He can actually do it for me at a lower price. You see, there are such things, and there's also things. There are also things like no, but then you are a super expert in that field. No one can beat you in the entire Namibia. You see, and it's you that I want because I know the quality of work that I'm gonna get from you. So I might not have a choice.
Okay.
Even for you
Okay.
guys, let's say once you're finished here, later in life you're gonna be asked. Let's say you after you're done with your metallurgy, you go for some interview. They can ask you. So, what do you at the end? At the end of the interview, they ask that question: how much do you expect to get? What is your? Give us that number for your salary. Yes, give us.
Now,
Yeah,
now
so do I just answer?
when you ask that question, sir,
Yes.
What
now
did
how
you
do you
say,
answer
sir?
it?
No, I'm asking. I was
If,
saying.
say, for instance, a typical metallurgist get paid, say, for instance, like 40,000. Now, how do you answer that question? Do you go for less, or do you? I don't know. What would be the best way to answer that question?
Depends on you.
Less is more.
Now,
You can
how
tell them.
how will you
No.
answer?
Let's say now. Let's say you say you want 50. Okay, it's fine. They will not say what they will not say a lot of things. No, it's fine. They'll just write it down. And then your colleague there Someone, remember, you're not the only one who's going for that. Ne? Another colleague of yours went like, no, 30, I'm fine. And then let's say that guy is also, remember that guy is also qualified just like you. And maybe, let's say he's even more experienced, or maybe he's more exposed even more than you, while you are asking 50. You see, it becomes a negotiation. If you put it too high, it's a problem. If you put it too low, it's a problem. You will never know.
Oh, I
So,
think
And then if you have an inside man, you can always find out what they want.
do your research also.
HR.
HR.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's always like that. Even if you have to move from this mine to that mine, same thing will happen.
But isn't it that it's best to aim too high so that maybe they can now, for instance,
Yeah,
if they are not happy with how much you want to get paid, then
You will
that's
not
when
be hired, my friend.
You think they'll come back and say we're not happy or what?
you heard Wilfred is asking for 30,000, bruh. You're asking for 50.
Yeah,
the moment
you will
know
not get hired.
You see, that's the problem.
But
It's a matter of supply and demand. If, let's say, there are a lot of metallurgists who are, some of them not having work, some of them are even retrenched, so which means they are more experienced than you, and then you put yours at 50, they can just take other ones.
Yeah.
But if, let's say, there are a lot of mines, let's say all the uranium mines starting up, so metallurgists are on serious demand now. There are very few of them who are not working. Then you can actually ask them 60.
Make it 80.
Yeah, you can make it 80. It
Because
depends.
also the other thing.
So what did you make it?
Yeah, so what did you make it you?
That's a good
Yes, that's what I want to know. So
That's a good question.
Serious questions.
Okay, we can move on to the next section. Okay, now remember the things that you have done. I'm sure in your accounting and management course, that's the year course, you've done this internal rate of return, return on investment, NPVs. You've done those, so you need to review those ones.
Yep.
But we doesn't have to just
You forgot, wait.
Because sometimes you might have,
say-
let's say you have 3 projects, for example, that you need to compare and choose, and then let's say the company can only afford to finance 1 project. So you need to identify which project should the company finance, depending on this IRR or ROIs and NPVs. Because you might have heard some, they do in industry, sometimes they do something like this project, they will tell you, because the investors, they don't want to risk their money, they will tell you that we will just invest in the first project. Once you execute that project and that project start making, you start operating and it's making profit, that project must fund the next project. The next project must fund the other project. The other project must fund the other one, like that.
With one investment.
Yeah, there are such things. Okay, so now in terms of monitoring your cost now, like your colleague said, you might come up with a spreadsheet. You have time on the horizontal axis and cost on the vertical axis. Then you'll be tracing all your costs for the project. Okay, so you have a budgeted cost of work performed. As the work, what was the budget for the work? As time goes on, as each activity is getting completed, how much did you budget to pay for it? And then you also trace now your actual, how much did you actually use? And then the baseline also in terms of your projected. So as time goes on, you keep tracking those two, you're tracking them like that. Then there's this cost variation. You see that the actual here is higher compared to the budgeted value. So we have the issue there. So you need to now maybe do something to push back this curve so that it can go on track. So you do that as time goes on until the entire project is completed. This the cost variation can be maybe it's because of scope creep. Maybe you've added more things, or maybe there are some risks that that were involved in the project. So those are some of the things that you might experience. So you just need to keep track of it. Yeah, and then that's the end of
We are
it.
done.
Do you guys perhaps have questions, or perhaps you want to discuss something?
Just how much you
Yeah.
wrote
How
on
much
that
you
amount?
wrote? Yeah.
How much?
The serious question.
How much I?
How much you wrote? Did you go for 50 or 30?
Or 30.
Oh, you're
Of
asking for
80.
the magic number. That depends on yourself.
The matching.
Remember,
No, we're not asking about us.
Even just the first one, the old one.
Yeah.
it depends on industry. It depends on where you find yourself.
Where did you
Mm.
find yourself?
As soon as you graduate,
Or is it?
as soon as you graduate, you're gonna go through a training program. Like for me, I went through a training program at Scorpion.
Mm.
That training program
Mhm.
is in 3 phases: phase A, B, and C. So after, let's say, first phase, when you go in, mainly work as an operator most of the time. It will last for around 6 months or so. During that time, you earn a specific amount, and then once you have completed it, your salary will increase again, and then again it will increase like three times like that, and then
3 times a year.
then after that you'll be appointed now as a metallurgist. So you will not just start at the salary of the fully trained metallurgist already. So it depends
Get
on
what
How much?
salary you spend?
how much.
How
At
much
the
was the
start,
fully trained metallurgist
It depends. It depends
salary?
where he's working.
it's copy and zinc.
It's copy and zinc.
Was it
after
between
completing
20 and 30?
Don't worry about that. You will definitely get the money. Don't worry. The money you will get, obviously.
Sir,
We have to start budgeting, sir.
We have to do cost analysis.
Yeah, but before you go to that, is your job secured already? How many of you there are having bursaries now?
Nothing.
No.
Coronas,
sir,
Because when I finished my metallurgy here at NAST, I was having a Scorpion bursary, so I just went straight to Scorpion. I told them that I'm done. Then they asked me, when do you want to start? Yeah, and then I went to them straight. So it becomes
So you didn't go for an interview?
no, what interview?
Oh,
Must be
Because
nice.
look,
that's why.
I owe them. I need to go work for them the time period that
To work for them.
they've paid for me.
So maybe you're even working for 6,000.
No. That's too little. Not even operators are there.
Yeah,
So
not
just
even
give us a rough estimation of what you were earning
Yeah.
in the first year.
So it
in
becomes.
the first year.
But I don't think you need to worry about that for now. First thing, you need to get a job.
Ah.
That's the first thing.
yes, sir.
But
sir,
what is your plan after
So
you?
you're not cool.
So if
Oh,
I
that
go
one-
work, they will I be able to rent?
That one I can tell you, but for now we are even recording this. You see.
Yeah, okay. We
Okay, now
understand.
tell
The
me.
most important thing, first thing, is to get a job, because now the markets are tough. Eh?
Ah,
Ah, yeah.
They are not. Eh?
Mm.
Okay.
I don't care about the market.
Celestine, you have a way or what?
I get away.
Jew, what happened to Jew?
I'm
Sir, I
joking,
just
bruh.
want to-
I'll find a way.
These things are recorded.
Jew-
sir, I just wanted to ask if you perhaps maybe have more materials on internal rate of return, NPV, and also you can just send them.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, because for that one, I did not go deep in them. I presumed you've done it in accounting
You
and
guys have done the thing in 4 modules already. Oh,
in
aye.
formal.
Yeah, I was just asking if you have more material just for self-study sake, so you can maybe
Oh.
just email them.
Just to revise.
They must go revise their notes.
Christine.
Not currently,
Yeah,
but
you
I
cannot
think
say.
should be need be. Because I understood that
Okay.
you've done that, it will not be a big challenge for you guys.
Yeah.
Even for your design
Mhm.
project. Did you start with your design project already?
Ish. I must first get there.
You're gonna use them again at the end.
Away.
Those things again. Okay, otherwise, this is the end of the lecture. Is there perhaps anything else you guys want to hear? Other than the magic number?
So that we love you, sir.
Ah, you guys. But don't worry. Money,
You don't love us, or
you will get the money, okay? You don't need to worry about that much. But first thing, get the experience, get exposed, then you are good to go.
how much money will we get?
Depends on where you find yourself.
Good day,
Okay,
sir.
bro.
Good day, sir.
Yeah?
Have fun, sir.
Bye.
What?
Next Zoom meeting within 5 minutes where we talk the real stuff.
Oh, these are the real stuff.
These are the real stuff.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, but getting the job, I think it's more important than the salary, because the salary can always go up.
Then the salary, yeah.
It's true, sir.
Because the
Thanks for the
challenge-
tea.
Bye-bye.
we only have 1 minute. Okay, guys, have a good day then.
Same to
Have a
you.
Likewise.
nice day, sir.
Okay.
Love you.
Sharp, likewise.
Likewise.